Welcome. Grab your coffee, settle in, and let this story touch your heart. We didn't go home that night. We drove until sunrise, parking behind a closed gas station just outside city limits. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The audio recorder still sat on the dashboard, blinking, mocking us. When I finally mustered the courage to listen, the playback was corrupted, distorted static, fragmented voices, and then, unmistakably, a low whisper repeating one sentence. We were never there. Emily buried her face in her hands. It's like they're everywhere, and nowhere at all. She wasn't wrong. Marcus had made it clear this wasn't about secrecy. It was about control, which meant they didn't care about hiding. They just didn't want to be understood. We spent the next day in a roadside motel trying to re-strategize. Sleep wasn't an option, not with what we'd seen. I scoured every copy of the files we'd stashed. Paranoid now, afraid some digital parasite had corrupted them. But they were still intact. Emily's voice shook as she asked the question I had been avoiding. What if Zara was never out of the fold? What if the story she told me, about wanting to escape, was just part of it? I looked up. You think she lured you back in on purpose? She knew I trusted her. She gave me that USB. But maybe that was the plan. Maybe I was supposed to show it to someone like you. The room felt colder. That possibility shifted everything. If Zara was still working for them, then Emily wasn't just an escapee. She was bait, and I'd been hooked. We needed help, someone off the grid. Someone who didn't just understand cults, but systems, networks, architecture. That's when I remembered Jordan Klein. He'd been a cybersecurity analyst who vanished after testifying in a federal case involving a corporate data manipulation ring. He wasn't just paranoid, he was calculated. The last I heard, he was living somewhere in Ironbridge, a forgotten mining town turned ghost village. We drove there the next evening under heavy fog. Ironbridge was a ruin of what it once was. Rusted storefronts, broken fences, entire blocks swallowed by vines. Emily said it looked like a place even memories were afraid of. We found Jordan living in an underground unit beneath an old hardware store. The door was rigged with at least 4 layers of alarms, all analog. I knocked 3 times, paused, then 2 more, a sequence he used to recognize old friends. He opened the door with a shotgun in one hand and a cigarette in the other. "Took you long enough," he muttered. "I've been expecting someone." I wasn't sure if that comforted or terrified me. Inside, Jordan's bunker was a fortress of knowledge. Stacks of notebooks, wired monitors, encryption hardware, and about 7 different types of homemade tea. Emily hesitated at first, but eventually opened up, sharing everything: Zara, Marcus, the fold, the USB. Jordan listened in silence, then took the drive from us with a kind of grim reverence. "I've seen groups like this before," he said, "but this one's different. It's not just ideology, it's architecture, like someone's designing a new reality, and this fold is just one layer of it." He scanned the USB into an isolated system, then decrypted the deepest folders. What he found made my stomach churn. There were video logs, not just of Emily, of me, footage from my apartment, my classroom, my phone calls, conversations I'd had with Emily years ago, things I didn't even remember saying. "They've been watching both of you long before you ever knew them," Jordan said. "This isn't about recruitment, it's about study." "Study?" I asked, horrified. "Behavior, fear thresholds, relationship dynamics. They're not running a cult. They're building psychological profiles for testing, maybe, or manipulation. Think military-grade emotional conditioning." Emily's face went pale. "So we were experiments?" "In a way," Jordan said. "But it's not just you. There are hundreds of folders like this. Thousands. All labeled by initials, not names. They're trying to map trust, to see what breaks people and what rebuilds them." We spent hours poring through data. One folder was labeled Phase 4, Reversal. Inside were plans for reintroducing lost members back into society, with implanted memories, false backstories, emotional anchors. One of the files included Zara's code name, Vesper. Vesper was activated 6 months ago, Jordan said. Her mission was emotional tethering. That means she was supposed to connect with someone, build reliance, then guide that person back to the fold. Emily stood up. So it was all fake. Every conversation, every promise. She never left. She was just leading me back. I tried to comfort her, but what could I say? The truth hurt more than the betrayal. But Jordan wasn't done. I traced some of the routing info from the data logs. Whoever's funding this, they're not just local. This is global. There are matching fold clusters in Germany, Brazil, and Singapore. They operate under different names, but the symbols, the spiral in the square, is consistent. What do they want? I asked. Jordan shrugged. That's the real horror. I don't think they want anything. I think they're just watching, learning, waiting. Before we left, Jordan handed us a burner phone. I'll try to stay in contact, but if I go dark, assume I'm compromised. And if they find you, don't run. Disappear. It wasn't encouragement. It was reality. The drive back felt heavier. Emily didn't say a word for miles. When we finally got to my apartment, we both hesitated before walking in. Nothing looked out of place, but something felt off. The air was too still. The silence was too pure. I reached for the light switch. It didn't work. That's when I saw it. Painted on the far wall in thick red strokes was a single symbol, a spiral, inside a square. Emily screamed. We backed out of the apartment and ran down the hall. But as we reached the stairs, we heard it. Footsteps above us, calm, deliberate, descending one floor at a time. They were already here. We ducked into the storage room across the hall and slammed the door behind us. I braced a chair against the knob while Emily searched for another exit. The only light came from the flickering bulb above our heads. Outside, the footsteps paused. Then a knock. 3 times. Pause. 2 more. Just like the knock I used for Jordan. They were mocking us. Emily started hyperventilating. What do we do? What do we do? I grabbed her hands. We don't give in. That's what they want. But part of me was crumbling. We were being hunted, monitored, pushed into corners where no options existed. That's when we remembered the burner phone. I texted Jordan. They found us. Spiral on wall. Same knock. Help. No response. Then the light in the storage room blew out. We sat in pitch black, hearts pounding, waiting. No more footsteps. No more knocking. Just silence. And then, a vibration. The phone. A message from Jordan. But not a text. A video. I hesitated, then pressed play. It showed Jordan, tied to a chair, blood trickling from his temple. Behind him stood Zara, smiling. "Hello, Emily," she said. "You've wandered too far. But don't worry. We're bringing you home." The video ended. Emily dropped the phone. I stared at her, unable to move, unable to speak. We were no longer the observers. We were the observed. And they were done hiding. We didn't speak for a long time. After watching that video, something in Emily changed. She sat in the dark, staring at the blank screen of the phone, her face pale, her breath shallow. Zara's message echoed through the room like a curse. "We're bringing you home." I didn't know what home meant anymore. It wasn't safety. It wasn't comfort. It was the fold, this network of manipulation, false identity, emotional entrapment. A place where trust was weaponized and every connection was a calculated strategy. And now we had a choice. Hide again and live like fugitives, or go back into the darkness and confront the truth head-on. Emily chose the latter. "I can't keep running," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She was my best friend. I believed in her. I still want to believe she's not completely gone." Her eyes met mine. "But if she is, then I have to be the one to end this." That morning, we didn't drive away. We drove back into the city, into their territory. We started with the one place we had never dared return. Zara's old apartment. It was abandoned now, the windows boarded up, the entrance sealed with rusted chains. But the building was familiar, too familiar. Emily broke down for a moment as we stood in front of it. She had first met Zara there. They had laughed, cried, shared secrets within those walls. Now it felt like a mausoleum. But just as we were about to leave, we noticed something strange. A man in a gray hoodie across the street, watching, unmoving. When he realized we'd seen him, he didn't run. He raised a hand and made a gesture. A slow spiral motion with his index finger. Emily gritted her teeth. They're leading us somewhere. And they were. The man began to walk and we followed. No words were exchanged. He took us through back alleys, over pedestrian bridges, and eventually into the old Bellevue district, where the city had tried, and failed, to revitalize a forgotten cluster of buildings. He entered an old brick structure that used to be a school. The sign out front still read Bellevue Academy for the Gifted. Inside, the air was musty, thick with mold and dust. But the moment we stepped past the lobby, it all changed. Clean walls, surveillance cameras, white tile flooring. The front was a facade. Behind it, the Fold was alive and operational. The man turned to us and spoke for the first time. "She's waiting in room 5. We found room 5 at the end of a long corridor. The door creaked open easily, and there she was, Zara, dressed in black, composed, sitting in a chair like she had known with certainty that we would return. "Emily," she said softly, "I'm glad you came." Emily didn't respond. She walked inside slowly, cautious, every movement deliberate. I followed behind, never letting my guard down. Zara gestured to the chairs opposite her. "Please, sit." "We didn't." She exhaled. "You found the files. You know what I am." Emily's voice cracked. "I want to hear it from you." There was a pause, then Zara looked up, eyes cold but strangely sincere. "I was never out," she said. "Everything we shared, every conversation, was to prepare you, to test the limits of your attachment, to see how much of yourself you'd give to someone who was never really there." My stomach turned. "But why?" Emily demanded. "Why me? Why us?" Zara tilted her head. "Because you were always the right profile. Smart, empathetic, resistant but curious. You weren't like the others who joined for salvation. You joined to understand. That made you valuable." "And me?" I asked bitterly. Zara's eyes narrowed. "You were a bonus. Your proximity to her accelerated the timeline. You brought instability to a stable equation. That made you interesting." Emily stepped forward, fists clenched. "What is this all for, Zara? What are you building?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Zara spoke, almost reverently. "We're not building anything. We're revealing. The Fold doesn't create lies. It strips away the delusions people wrap themselves in. Family, friendship, trust. Those are the constructs. We're showing people what's underneath when all that's gone." "You're destroying lives," Emily snapped. "You turned me into an experiment. You killed Jordan." Zara shook her head. "Jordan wasn't part of the plan. His curiosity made him disposable. You, on the other hand, you can still return." Emily's breath caught. "What?" "You don't have to run anymore. We can wipe the trail, create new memories, give you a clean slate. You'll remember only what we allow." "That's not healing. That's erasure," I said. "That's brainwashing." Zara stood slowly. "Call it what you want, but some people would kill for a second chance at peace." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Then why did you bring me back?" "Because despite everything," Zara said, stepping closer, "a part of me remembered who I was before the Fold, before the training, and I wanted one last conversation with my best friend." Emily shook her head. "You're not her anymore." The moment hung heavy in the air. Then Zara reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small black device. Sleek, almost like a USB stick, but longer, with a glowing red pulse at its center. "This," she said, "contains the master key to the internal server. Every file, every member, every experiment. Expose this, and you bring the Fold down." My heart stopped. "But why give it to us?" I asked. Zara didn't answer immediately. Then, with visible pain, she looked at Emily. "Because I broke protocol. I let the past in. I shouldn't have. You deserve to end this. even if it costs me everything. She placed the device on the table and stepped back. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple sets. Zara turned toward the door. They're coming. Take it and go. What about you? Emily asked. I'll buy you time. It's all I can do now. Before we could argue, Zara shoved us out through a side door that led into the maintenance tunnels. We ran, my hand gripping the device like a lifeline, my mind reeling from what just happened. Zara wasn't entirely gone. Something of her had survived. And in the end, she chose to help us. We heard gunfire behind us just once. Zara's sacrifice. We didn't stop running until we emerged behind the building into open air. Emily collapsed to her knees, sobbing, clutching the device to her chest. That night, we went to every independent journalist, every encrypted whistleblower forum we could find. We uploaded the files to 6 dark websites and mirrored them through anonymous servers. Within 48 hours, the Fold's entire infrastructure was exposed. Photos, videos, member rosters, project names, financial backers. It was the largest leak of a psychological operation in recent history. Some called it a cult, others a covert experiment. But the truth was undeniable. And just like that, they disappeared. Buildings abandoned, websites scrubbed, names vanished. It was as if the Fold had never existed. But Emily and I knew better. Weeks passed, then months. We tried to rebuild our lives. Emily got into advocacy work, helping those manipulated by secretive organizations. I went back to teaching, but never with the same confidence. There was always a part of me looking over my shoulder. One evening, Emily and I sat on a park bench, watching children play under the dying light of the sun. Do you ever wonder, she asked quietly, if we're still in it? In what? The experiment. I didn't answer, because I had wondered too. Trust was a fragile thing. Once broken, it rarely returns in the same shape. We had faced monsters disguised as friends, truths cloaked as lies, and the one person Emily had loved most had been a mask hiding a mirror of her own vulnerability. But in that silence, as the wind rustled through the trees, I took her hand and held it tightly. Because if there's one thing the Fold could never predict, never calculate, it was what we did after the illusion ended. We didn't forget, we didn't forgive, but we moved forward, together, and somewhere beneath the spiral and the square, we hoped the Watchers were still watching, because they needed to know. The trust they broke, we rebuilt it, not in their image, but in defiance of it.